What happens when you judge someone not by their actions or their integrity, but by the color of their skin or the job they hold? What if the person you so carelessly try to humiliate holds secrets and skills far beyond what you could ever expect? Today's story is one that teaches this lesson perfectly, a story of arrogance, injustice, hidden identity, and the quiet triumph of dignity over prejudice. Stay until the very end, because what starts as a simple accusation in a wealthy man's penthouse will unfold into a life-shattering lesson of humility and truth. This is not just a tale about a cleaner being falsely accused of theft. It's about what happens when the underestimated rise, when the overlooked reveal their true strength, and when the walls of privilege come crashing down. Let's begin in the towering heights of New York City, inside a lavish 300 square meter penthouse owned by Richard Blackstone, a man whose fortune was as large as his ego. His world was built on money power and the belief that everyone beneath his status deserved suspicion and control. And standing quietly in that very apartment was Monica Santos, a 32-year-old black woman with a humble uniform, silently arranging cleaning supplies, preparing for another day of invisible labor. But what Richard didn't know, and what would soon destroy his perfect world, was that Monica wasn't just any cleaner. Behind her calm gaze and quiet hands lay a past, a skill set and a purpose that would rewrite everything he thought he knew. Richard's furious voice sliced through the air like a blade. "Where is my Rolex watch?" he demanded, his eyes scanning the room like a predator searching for prey. Monica paused, calmly meeting his gaze. "I don't know anything about a watch, Mr. Blackstone." Her voice was steady, measured. But Richard wasn't listening. His anger wasn't logical, it was reflexive, rooted in assumptions built over a lifetime of privilege. "Of course you do," he spat. "You were the only one near my closet today. A $50,000 submariner doesn't just vanish." And here we see the classic scenario play out: an entitled man, unable to account for his own mistakes, turning blame onto the nearest vulnerable target. This isn't fiction. In real-life, stories like this fill courtrooms and newspaper headlines. People of color accused in stores, on sidewalks, in offices, not for what they've done, but for what others assume they will do. Monica stood her ground. 5 years with elite cleaning services had taught her how to handle the tantrums of the wealthy. "I can check my purse if that will make you feel better," she offered with quiet confidence. But inside, she felt that familiar sting, that injustice burning under the surface, whenever her honesty was questioned, simply because of who she was. "Oh, you'll check all right," Richard sneered, pulling out his phone. "And the police will check too. People like you think you can take advantage of hardworking people like me." The insult was clear, wrapped in ugly assumptions. And then something unexpected happened. A sharp, desperate cry echoed from the next room, the sound of a baby's wail, piercing, frantic, painful. Monica frowned. This wasn't a tired or hungry cry. This was distress, deep, aching distress. "Your son is crying," Monica said, her instincts alert. But Richard dismissed it with a wave. "The nanny handles that." The wailing grew louder. Monica couldn't ignore it. Breaking every rule of professional cleaning, she stepped into the nursery. What she found made her heart sink. Richard's baby, 6-month-old Thomas, lay alone in his crib. His diaper soaked his face red from hours of crying. No nanny, no comfort, just neglect. Monica's maternal instincts surged. Years of helping raise her nephews taught her what to do. Gently, carefully, she picked him up, changed his diaper, and whispered softly. The crying stopped instantly. In her arms, Thomas quieted, nestled against her chest, finally at peace. There is a universal truth here. Babies sense the energy of those around them. They know comfort from danger, calm from chaos. And in Monica's steady arms, Thomas felt safe for the first time that day. Suddenly, Richard appeared at the door, his phone still clutched in his hand. His eyes widened in fury. "What are you doing? Put my son down." Monica turned and calmly handed Thomas over. But the moment the baby left her arms, he wailed again, louder, more desperate than before. Richard rocked him, muttered, tried everything, but Thomas wouldn't stop. He sensed the tension, the anger, the coldness in his father. "He calmed with you in seconds," Richard muttered, confused. Monica met his eyes. "Babies sense tension. When adults are nervous or angry, they know. They respond to calm." For a brief moment, something flickered in Richard's gaze, a spark of understanding, maybe even respect. But it was gone in an instant, smothered by arrogance. How convenient, he sneered. The same person who steals my watch also has a magic touch with babies. Let's pause here. This moment happens far too often in real life. Consider the story of the Central Park birdwatching incident in 2020, a black man falsely accused by a white woman who called the police simply because he asked her to leash her dog. Prejudice and assumption drive so many daily injustices. Monica, like that man, stood in quiet dignity against the storm. But today, Monica decided to push back. For years, she had endured these slights. Not today. Mr. Blackstone, she said firmly, let's be clear. I did not take your watch. If you intend to accuse me, call the police. I welcome a full investigation. Security cameras, records, everything. Her voice was calm, but beneath it burned a strength that made Richard hesitate. For the first time, he realized this woman was not afraid. Monica returned to her work, her movements precise, controlled, unafraid. Richard watched uneasy. Something about her confidence unsettled him, as if she knew something he didn't. And she did, because Monica was no ordinary cleaner. Before coming to the U.S., she had been a private investigator in Jamaica, trained in criminology, skilled in surveillance, experienced in uncovering lies. This false accusation had awakened that old fire, the fire to expose the truth. Anne and Richard. He was too blind in his anger to see the trap he just stepped into. He didn't know that the woman he was trying to humiliate held every tool needed to destroy him, not with violence, but with truth. Stay tuned for part 2, where the story takes a shocking turn and Richard Blackstone's perfect life begins to unravel in ways he never imagined. As Monica calmly continued organizing her cleaning materials, the air in Richard Blackstone's penthouse thickened with unspoken tension. Richard stood near the entrance, fingers moving furiously across his phone screen, sending messages and warnings to his contacts in elite cleaning services. His goal was clear: ruin Monica's reputation before she could defend herself. I'm alerting your boss, he spat, glaring at her. Everyone will know what kind of employee they've sent into my home. But Monica only smiled faintly, an unsettling reaction that confused him. She knew something Richard didn't, that truth was already working in her favor. You see, Richard was a man so comfortable in his wealth and power that he'd forgotten an essential lesson: technology keeps records. Security cameras see everything. And in this ultra-secure luxury building, every hallway, every elevator, every parking spot was under digital watch. Monica had been cleaning for 5 years in elite homes. She understood this. Richard, in his arrogance, had clearly forgotten. But this wasn't just about a missing Rolex anymore. Richard was now planning to slander Monica publicly. I'm posting this on social media, he sneered. Other employers deserve to be warned about people like you. The words hung in the air like poison. People like me? Monica asked quietly, turning to face him fully. Her eyes burned with quiet fury. What kind of person is that, Mr. Blackstone? Please explain it to me. His mouth opened, but no sound came. For the first time, he realized he had crossed a line far deeper than professional insult. He had revealed his prejudice, laid bare and ugly. Real life offers countless echoes of this moment. Consider the tragic story of Rashawn Nelson and Dante Robinson, 2 black entrepreneurs arrested in a Philadelphia Starbucks for loitering while waiting for a business meeting. Their calm defiance and legal action forced the company to confront its biases and publicly apologize. Like them, Monica wasn't just going to accept humiliation. She was going to expose it. Richard's phone buzzed. Phone. A message from his lawyer. Meeting canceled. Urgent family matter. Call me. He ignored it. His focus was locked on Monica, still trying to crush the woman who refused to break. But Monica had already won the moral ground. You know what's interesting, Mr. Blackstone, she said, closing her briefcase. In 5 years of working for families like yours, this is the first time I've ever been accused of theft. First time you got caught, he sneered, clinging to his crumbling defense. Monica shook her head. Or the first time someone jumped to blame the only black woman in the room. Her words struck like thunder, and suddenly Richard's own certainty wavered. What if the cameras showed something different? What if the police came and uncovered the truth he didn't know? But Monica knew exactly what would happen. Because before she'd even stepped into his penthouse, she had researched him, his lawsuits, his complaints, the quiet history of discrimination settled out of court with gag orders. Monica was not only protecting herself, she was preparing for a reckoning. And Richard? He was too blind to see the traps snapping shut around him. Listen here, Richard tried again, puffing up like a cornered beast. I've known people like you forever. You come in with this attitude. Monica cut him off. Deep down, what dishonest thieving is, that what you're trying to say? Her calm burned hotter than any shout. Careful, Mr. Blackstone. Your real thoughts are showing. He froze. Somewhere deep inside, fear whispered. He sensed just for a moment that this was no ordinary cleaning lady. Meanwhile, the baby cried again from the nursery, but neither of them moved. Their silent battle filled the room. Monica's stare was unflinching. You want to know something about people like me? She said softly. We grow up knowing that truth always comes out. Always. And when it does, the ones who lied pay the highest price. Richard forced a laugh, but it was hollow. Are you threatening me? He asked, but she only smiled. No, just explaining how the real world works. And with that, she picked up her purse and headed for the door. That's when Richard's phone exploded with notifications. 12 missed messages, 3 missed calls, all from his office, his family lawyer, his private investigator. Something was happening, something big, but he was too busy chasing Monica to see the cracks forming in his life. Where are you going? The police are on their way, he shouted after her. Monica paused at the door, glancing back. Great. I love the police, especially when they check security footage. You do have cameras in this building, don't you? Hallways, elevators, parking lot? Her smile deepened. The same ones that will show I arrived at 9 this morning and haven't left since. But mostly the ones that will show where you really lost your watch. For the first time, Richard broke into a sweat, because deep down the truth began gnawing at him. Where had he actually last seen the Rolex? What if? No. Impossible. But doubt spread like poison. His phone buzzed again. Private investigator, urgent. Monica nodded politely. Excuse me, Mr. Blackstone. I have another house to clean. But don't worry, I'm sure the truth will come out today. She vanished down the hallway, leaving behind the scent of lemon polish and the chill of fear. Richard finally answered the investigator's call, hands shaking. Mr. Blackstone, came the tense voice on the other end. We need to talk immediately. It's about your wife. Richard blinked. My wife. She's in Miami visiting her mother. No, sir, the investigator interrupted. She's been in Las Vegas for 3 weeks, with another man. We have photos, hotel records, proof. The world spun. Richard staggered, clutching the table. That's impossible. She calls me every day. Using apps that mask location. I'm sorry, sir. While Richard reeled from betrayal, Monica was outside in the parking lot, her phone pressed to her ear. Carmen, she said, calling her sister. Remember that private security course I took before coming to the U.S.? Of course. You were top of the class. Why? Monica smiled. Because I need a small favor. Call Detective Martinez. Tell him Monica Santos is calling in a professional chip. Carmen gasped. Are you in trouble? Not yet. Monica replied, her eyes on the building's security camera. But someone else will be soon. And so while Richard struggled to hold his crumbling life together, Monica, the cleaner he thought was powerless, was quietly setting the stage for the downfall of a lifetime. Stay tuned for part 3, where Richard Blackstone's empire begins to collapse under the weight of truth, and Monica's hidden skills turn the tables completely. As the elevator softly slid closed behind Monica Santos, the game she'd set into motion began unfolding perfectly. Like a quiet storm building power, her careful confidence left behind a shaken, sweating Richard Blackstone, standing amid his own luxurious apartment, a man who had lost control, but was only beginning to realize it. Richard's phone buzzed violently in his trembling hand. Another message from his private investigator. Another blow to the empire he thought was indestructible. Sir, there's more. Your wife's lawyer contacted us. She's filing for divorce, and she wants half of everything. Richard gasped aloud, grabbing the edge of the kitchen counter to steady himself. What? That can't be. She wouldn't dare. But reality was finally crashing through the walls of arrogance he had spent years building. His wife knew about the hidden accounts, the secret mistresses, the tax evasions, and now she was turning the knife. But that wasn't the end. Another call came in, this time from Detective Martinez himself. "Mr. Blackstone," the officer said bluntly, "we've pulled the security footage from your building. Your Rolex wasn't stolen. You dropped it in the parking lot yesterday when you stumbled out of your car." The blood drained from Richard's face. "No, that's impossible. I... No." The detective ignored him. "We found it this morning, in the gutter near your reserve spot. Case closed. The cleaning lady's name is clear." The line went dead. His grand accusation, his smug superiority shattered. All along, the watch was never stolen, but something far more valuable had been lost: his reputation. And here's where truth becomes a sharper sword than any lie. In the real world, history is filled with such collapses. Think of Harvey Weinstein, who once ruled Hollywood only to fall because dozens of silenced voices finally rose in unison. Or Bernie Madoff, whose empire of deceit crumbled when forensic accountants traced every dollar. Richard Blackstone now stood on that same brink, not because of murder or fraud, but because of arrogance, prejudice, and a disastrous misjudgment of the quiet woman who knew far more than he did. While Richard panicked, Monica was several steps ahead. At a quiet cafe 3 blocks away, she sipped tea and dialed Detective Martinez. "Thank you for confirming the footage, Detective. I'll be sending you documentation from my lawyer." "This isn't over." Martinez chuckled. "Never thought I'd see the day Richard Blackstone got humbled by his own security cameras." Monica smiled. "He's about to learn what consequences feel like." And then came the media storm. Within hours, local news broke the story. Billionaire Richard Blackstone falsely accuses cleaning staff, security footage, clears worker. The headlines multiplied, social media exploded, civil rights attorneys issued statements, labor unions demanded investigations. The public's fury roared louder than Richard's lawyers ever could. And somewhere in the flood of notifications, Richard's corporate board summoned an emergency session. This is no exaggeration. Real-world companies have crumbled faster. Take Papa John's Pizza, the CEO ousted after a racial slur in a private call, or H&M, whose sales nosedived after a racially insensitive ad. In the court of public opinion, judgment is swift and cruel. Richard staggered into his office, dozens of missed calls flashing. His lead investor texted, "Pulling out, reputation risk unacceptable." His COO emailed, "We need to suspend you until further notice." Even the mayor's office distanced itself from him publicly. Like dominoes falling in perfect rhythm, Richard's world collapsed. Contracts canceled. Clients fled. Partners withdrew. The empire he had built on fear and intimidation turned to ash. But Monica's plan was far from over. Back at the law offices of Bryan and Ellis, the top civil rights firm in New York, Monica sat with her attorney, calmly reviewing the lawsuit draft. False accusation, defamation, emotional distress, civil rights violations, and punitive damages for racial profiling. Her lawyer smiled. "Miss Santos, this is going to cost him millions." Monica's response was simple. "I don't want revenge, I want change." And so they added demands: corporate reform, employee training, public apologies, funding for domestic worker protections. Not just justice for Monica, but for thousands like her. And here's the hidden power in moments like these: when quiet people rise, entire systems shift. Consider Rosa Parks, whose simple refusal to give up a bus seat sparked national reform. Anita Hill, who faced public humiliation to expose workplace harassment. Monica's stand was smaller but no less significant. Meanwhile, Detective Martinez reviewed the old files he'd pulled on Richard, 3 past discrimination complaints, all quietly settled, 2 wrongful termination suits hushed with payouts, and now irrefutable proof of guilt. "Let's see you buy your way out of this one," the detective muttered. By sunset, the media camped outside Richard's penthouse. Reporters shouted questions as he stumbled past sunglasses hiding his panic. "Mr. Blackstone, is it true you fabricated theft claims? What will you say to the civil rights charges?" He muttered no comment, but everyone knew this was the comment that mattered most. Silence, guilt, defeat, and Monica. She spent the evening with her family, laughing softly over dinner as her nephews teased her. "Aunt Monica, you're famous." They giggled, waving their tablets, showing her face on every news channel. She smiled warmly. "Fame isn't important. Truth is." Her phone buzzed again, her old instructor from the Jamaican private investigator program. "Saw the news, Monica. You want a job?" She laughed. "Maybe. This cleaning career just ended." But her mind was already turning. What could she do with this moment, with this voice the world had finally noticed? Stay tuned for part 4, where Monica's quiet victory turns into a movement for justice, and Richard Blackstone faces the ultimate irreversible downfall. 6 months had passed since that unforgettable day in Richard Blackstone's penthouse. The man who once ruled corporate boardrooms, real estate ventures, and luxury charity galas, with arrogant confidence now sat alone in a dimly lit studio apartment on the outskirts of Brooklyn, a far cry from his grand penthouse in Manhattan. No assistants, no drivers, no adoring investors. Just silence punctuated by the occasional buzz of his cheap smartphone, a reminder of the calls that no longer came. The courts had spoken. Monica's lawsuit settled for $3.5 million in damages paid by Richard's personal fortune after corporate liability was denied due to his personal misconduct. His wife, armed with evidence from private investigators, won her divorce battle and half his remaining assets. The IRS opened an audit into his hidden offshore accounts. Richard's company removed his name from its masthead, and the final blow, every major client dropped him. His empire, once untouchable, was dust. Meanwhile, Monica Santos's life had transformed into something neither she nor anyone else could have imagined. She now ran her own successful private investigation firm, specializing in exposing labor exploitation, corporate discrimination, and fraudulent business practices. Her phone rang constantly with clients' media request job offers, but she didn't forget why she'd started this new chapter. In the office of Santos Investigations, decorated simply but warmly, hung a framed photo, her smiling nephews and niece hugging her tight. Below it, a newspaper clipping, "Cleaner turned civil rights champion, Monica Santos wins landmark discrimination case." And beside that, a copy of her letter to the mayor suggesting legislation to protect domestic workers from abuse and exploitation. That bill was now moving through the New York legislature. And here's the real miracle of Monica's journey: she never asked for revenge. She asked for change. And that change was real. Carter Holdings, once Richard's kingdom, implemented mandatory racial bias training, security transparency policies, and employee protections across all properties. Other corporations quietly followed. The story of Monica Santos became a case study in law schools and corporate ethics seminars nationwide. But what about Brittany, the young HR manager who once ignored Monica's quiet discomfort? Or Trevor, the security guard who looked away, fired, replaced, their names forgotten, but their lesson permanent? Corporate America had been warned: assumptions have consequences. Silence has a price. And Monica herself. She spoke at conferences. She trained young private investigators. She quietly funded scholarships for immigrant women seeking education in law and justice. When asked in a televised interview why she didn't press for harsher punishment for Richard, her answer stunned millions. Because his fall was enough. He lost everything that mattered to him. "I wanted justice, not destruction, and I got it." This is where real-life examples give this story extra weight. Consider the story of Rosa Parks, whose quiet stand reshaped civil rights laws, or the Starbucks anti-bias training triggered by two black men's wrongful arrest, real change, born from quiet defiance. Monica's tale joined this lineage of truth-forcing progress. One afternoon, as Monica walked through Central Park, her phone buzzed. A call from Bryant and Ellis, the law firm that had helped her win. "Miss Santos," the partner said, "we'd like you to consult on a new case. Another woman, an immigrant housekeeper, facing wrongful accusations. She asked for you by name." Monica smiled softly. "Tell her I'll see her tomorrow. No one fights alone anymore." And what of Richard Blackstone gone from headlines? Forgotten by the business world. A warning rather than a legend. His fall served as a cautionary tale whispered in corporate circles. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume power protects you from truth. In the end, Monica's story was not about a lost watch or even a cruel accusation. It was about respect, about dignity, about how the simplest human decency, when denied, becomes a spark for justice. And it is a story we all should remember. Because somewhere today, another Monica quietly scrubs floors, or files papers, or serves coffee unseen by the powerful, underestimated by the privileged. But maybe, just maybe, she carries secrets too, a hidden skill, a quiet power, waiting for the right moment to rise. For the audience watching this video, remember this truth: underestimating someone based on their job, their background, their skin is not only wrong, it's dangerous. Because sometimes the ones you ignore are the ones holding the keys to your future or your downfall. Monica didn't just win her battle, she changed her world. And she reminded us all that even the smallest voice, when raised with courage and truth, can shake the tallest towers.